tying in Hump Day, and the Hump is about the beat of music. So it's going to be a lot of bass players, because bass players, we all have humps, and but also some other great, musical artists that I'm really a fan of.
I am a huge fan of today's guest, as will probably be clear from the tone of this conversation. She's just such a magnificent player, incredible person, great educator in so many different capacities. And I feel so happy whenever I see her play, talk to her. It's just so great. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we're talking today with Katie Thiroux about her new show that she's launching, The Hump, which is happening on Wednesdays, hence the name, as well as the fact that she plays bass and many other things that we get into. So definitely check out The Hump. I'm so happy that she's doing this. You can follow her on Instagram, and also The Hump on Instagram. We've got everything linked up to in the show notes. We also talk about the Discover Double Bass course that she filmed in the interim between the last episode and this one. The Discover Double Bass course that I filmed, that isn't out yet. If you're listening to this when this comes out, what we've both been up to during the pandemic, and much more. Let's get into it with Katie Thiroux. How are you, Katie?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Or I guess I can never. I'm good is probably the wrong phrase. I'm fine. We're managing. Yeah. Have you been getting smoke from the fires in Southern California? How's it been?
It was pretty bad last week, actually. Okay. Just the air quality, not necessarily smoke, but for a couple of days I didn't know what was going on, and I was like, wow, it looks really dark outside, and like the sunsets were like so fiery. But yeah. It seems to clear up now.
It's been going on and off here. It smells smoky again today. I went out for a run. It's tough because there's no gyms open or anything. So I was like, how do I must do something or I'm going to go mad. So I get up in the morning, I go for a run. But a couple days ago, I was coming back and it looked like a Chernobyl sort of situation. Mm-hmm. Like the sky was completely orange as the sun was coming up. And so. Katie, do you have these Discover Double Bass cards? Have you ever checked these out?
I have that one.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
okay.
I know. They're like baseball cards.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. It's so cool. What a cool way to market those. He had those out at the International Society of Bassist Convention last summer or whenever. Yeah, I think it was last summer. So it's really cool. So I don't think I saw you at SF Jazz. Like, was that 2019, early 2019, late 2018?
No, I think it was 2018.
Wow, it's been that long. Okay. Yeah. That's crazy. And then when were you over in Leeds filming with Jeff? Was that in 2018?
It was 2019, like in the spring.
In the spring. Okay. Yeah. It's funny because I haven't actually seen you since SF Jazz, but I feel like I've seen you a bunch because I actually went through your entire course. I actually did every single thing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's great. In fact, I can't find my little thing of coins, but you had one thing you talked about where you had like these, I don't remember if it was coins. I think maybe it was coins, but and like moving them across your stand or whatever. So I do that every single day. I kind of sort of did that in the past, but I was like, Katie does that. That's a really good idea. And I've been doing that for like working on passages or whatever. I have these little like things I got from one of the barcades here in San Francisco, just these little coins. And I just like move them across my stand.
I used to do it with almonds because like when I'm hungry or like when I'm practicing and you're also hungry, you don't want to like take a break. So I just eat some almonds. Yep. So then I'll take some from my pile and do that. And then my treat is getting to eat the almonds at the end.
Well, I love that you're so into cooking. It's been fun. Like I have liked cooking, but now that I have nowhere to go, I've been getting like deep into cooking. And so that's actually been like remarkably fun outlet for me. Have you always been into cooking? Has that been?
Yeah, I've always been into cooking just because growing up, I had to cook because there was such a big family, and like sometimes one person would be home, everyone would be home, or no one would be home. So you'd have to learn how to cook. And it wasn't until I started a plant-based diet almost 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I loved cooking before then, but then making that switch, you think it would be more restricting, but somehow it opened up a whole new world of like cooking techniques, ingredients. So like I'm having so much fun right now with it.
Yeah, well, you're giving me a lot of ideas because my wife's a vegetarian, not vegan, but vegetarian, and so I as a result I cook an awful lot of vegetarian dishes. And I think I saw you. Were you doing some sort of sushi?
Oh yeah.
That I'm gonna take a stab at something like that because I'm on these hot days. It's not quite as hot up here as it is down there, but I don't really want to fire up my oven to 550 degrees and like do a pizza. It's not really
exactly.
And we have no air conditioning here in San Francisco, so it's like you're setting yourself up for a bad night.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's good. It's good to see you. One of these days we'll get to see each other in person. Who knows when that is? But it's really cool to see. I was just watching your student recital that you did Instagram Live, right? And what a good idea. That's really cool. You're able to just request that people join you. Is that what you're doing in terms of that to get all your students on like that?
Yeah. So it was actually my husband who gave me the idea. He's a drummer, and I was trying to figure out a couple months ago, I was like, well, I have all these students and I want them to meet each other and I want them to have that feeling of performing because a lot of them are in school, either high school or university or college or whatever. And so they're kind of missing out on that, like, your blood rushing, getting up to perform for people. So I do one once a month and I shoot it out to all my students. If you're brave enough, it's such a good idea. Just prepare a song we've been working on or even a scale. I love it when it's like a beginner is just like, I have this scale, it's perfectly in tune, and the tone is great. And we pick about eight students, and they know I give them an order, and I just request them to go live. Sometimes there's some technical difficulties, but we roll with it. And they all get that same feeling of being nervous, as do I. Being on the screen is somehow way different from performing for live humans. So it's a whole different rush, and I'm really proud of them for trying.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely got its own unique challenges. I remember I was the technical person for this bass event back 3 years ago, this bass competition. We were doing everything streaming on Facebook Live, and I was in the thankless position of being the tech guy. So I like all problems is like, my internet doesn't work. Someone in Australia says, it's like, well, trying to answer them. And but yeah, it's interesting, the rushes and highs and lows and that kind of thing. But I love that's such a good idea to do that on Instagram like that, because just to have that live aspect, and it's something that people can just sort of like see in their feed and jump on, and then you have it on IGTV if they want to dig all the way in. It's really cool.
Well, then it's fun too, because it, like, within my own students, it builds like a little community. And I have so fortunate to have people in the all over the UK and in Europe and all over the US. So it's kind of fun that now they have this little community that they can ask each other questions about things they're working on. So it's fun.
Now, were you working at Colburn when we talked a few years ago, or is that a newer development, or what's the state of that?
Yeah, so that was newer. I think I started teaching there. It's just been 1 year, and that was also cool because I grew up going to Colburn.
Yeah.
And so that's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's such a prestigious school, but they're just students and kids, just like, when I grew up. So we have all the same problems or things in common. So it's not much different. It is nice to be in a beautiful location, but that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, for sure. Now, and that Colburn facility is outstanding, but that's relatively new, right? I visited maybe 4 years ago. Peter Lloyd, I visited his studio class just when I was in LA one time, but that's relatively new, I think. Right?
Yeah, actually, when I started at Colburn, probably in 1998, it was in the AV warehouse of USC in not a great part of town. And so there was just like loads of Wenger practice rooms, and that's where teachers would teach. And then the man Colburn himself, they got enough money to raise all the funds, and now it's across the street from the Walt Disney Concert Hall. And it was just one magnificent building. And now it's two magnificent buildings. And I still get lost when I'm there. I don't know which building I'm in, on which floor, where I'm going. So sometimes I'm late to lessons because of that.
you were obviously doing teaching before the pandemic, again with Colburn and other things. If we rewind like 6-8 months or whatever, like how are you fitting all that in with? Because I was just looking on your website before I hopped on. It's like, my goodness, the number of tour dates that you canceled. I was thinking, if you had been doing all that, like how did teaching fit into your performing activities? It must have been challenging.
Well, for sure, I didn't have nearly as many students as I do now. And I really, in a way, thank the pandemic for that, because people were asking me to teach online and I just never wanted to, because I thought that it was not going to be as good of an experience. But prior to like when I would be on tour, I'm really good about scheduling all my students. I learned this from the piano player, Tamir Hendelman. He would schedule his students. He teaches at UCLA and he's a great piano player for the whole semester. So I would do that because I'm able to look at my book and go, okay, I've got a tour here, a tour here. I need to give you X amount of hours. And if we schedule something, I'm there. And also maybe to a point of annoyance, I keep in touch with my students. You know, you got to send me in between lessons, like, what are you working on? Send me videos. Do you have questions? I'm hounding students probably more than they even want. But for me, that's the key to being a good teacher. And that's what I would want, like, you know, keeping that engagement going. So, but yeah, now I have like my community college has started up. So I probably have around 25 students right now and it's all online.
Wow. That's a good chunk of students, but
yeah, it is.
Well, I was wondering how, because like you, I've had my doubt. I mean, I've taught Skype lessons off and on for like over a decade, but I've always kind of had my doubts as to how good that experience is compared to the in-person experience. And I might still have some doubts, but there are obviously some benefits too. Mm-hmm. And one of those is what you're just describing, like getting in a cycle of them sending you videos. That's mm-hmm. a big thing for you.
Oh yeah. You don't have to, but it helps me and it helps them too. It's like, okay, I actually have to practice this because I'm sending it to somebody to look at. And it's just for feedback, you know, things I can help on and to make the next lesson even, you know, not go faster, but I've looked at you in the middle of the week or 2 weeks and I can hit the floor running.
Yeah, it almost makes when you get together one-on-one, it almost makes it more like a consulting session or something. Like you've been like with them on the process, and it's you know, there are advantages to doing the asynchronous teaching, I think, because you can rewind, you can watch, you can scrub ahead, you can. Mm-hmm. That's cool that you're doing that, mm-hmm. And it's cool that you're starting. So the Hump.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about the Hump.
Okay, so. This is it's going to be a video. What would you call it if it's a video interview and also a podcast? So it's going to be available on 2 platforms.
Nice.
So it's not quite a vlog. So it's a video interview. But anyways, I love talking to people. Like I'm talking to you right now. I love when I'm traveling and I meet people who come see us play, or just like I'm in Spain and I talk to somebody on the street. So I love talking to people. And I've kind of, in the back of my mind, wanted to do a series where I get to talk to some of my favorite artists. And my goal is just to figure out, or to ask them basically 2 questions: how they've become so amazing and what was their journey. And a lot of them will probably not think that they're that amazing, but they are. And one component is going to be at the end, one constant is whatever I want them to show me, you know, in a minute or 2, whatever they're working on. And I want to try, well, you know, what they're working on too. I'm just so interested in what people are doing all the time.
Cool. What a great idea. Had you been thinking about doing something like this for a while, or has this just come in with the current situation and being trapped at home a little more than you might normally be?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of doing it on the road, like when I'm traveling in different cities or countries. Because we all know musicians all over the world. So I thought that would be cool, but that's not happening right now. And I thought, well, I'm at home, there's the internet, and I got a camera and a microphone. So let's give this a try.
Cool. Well, I can't wait. I will be one of your first subscribers as soon as it comes on board. When are you starting it right away, or do you have a launch date? Or
it's going to air. The first episode is going to be Wednesday, September 9th, and it's going to come out every Wednesday. So Hump Day, we're tying in Hump Day, and the Hump is about the beat of music. So it's going to be a lot of bass players, because bass players we all have humps, and but also some other great, musical artists that I'm really a fan of.
Cool. Well, I can't wait. Okay, I'll make sure that this goes out like either the Monday or the Thursday, like right when it comes out. We'll make sure to time this out. So that's
very
great.
Cool.
Cool. Well, and whenever this obviously you can connect like we're connecting, but whenever you get back on the road, what a great chance to just sort of do something extra. It's really
because we have like sometimes you might have a day off, and you're in Paris or Belgium or something. And it's great to go see some sights, but it's also, catch up with a friend and see what's going on.
Well, it's sort of a good excuse. And maybe you don't need this, but like for me, I'm just have so many things on my plate. Like if I didn't have an outlet like this, I just wouldn't make time to have those kind of conversations that I probably want to have with people. I find myself so often I'm like talking to somebody that I'd want to be talking to anyway about something, a little bit deeper instead of just checking my phone for random things. So it's a convenient excuse to learn more about a person that you might even know well or work with or be an admirer of. So I love it. That's very cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. When you start, have you thought any? I mean, I don't have a great question here, but I'm just sort of thinking like you're not on the road now. Do you think what do you see like 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Has being more at home sort of changed your thoughts about being on the road? It's kind of a bad question, but
no. It's cool though. It's been so nice to be home. I think, since April, I've been at home. I am starting to feel like a little bit of that itch to get out on the road again, but definitely being home has been such a nice reset for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess in 2 years, I mean, the next thing I have in the books is a tour in Europe in next November, 2021.
Okay.
So that's that. I don't know what it's going to look like. So I think we're all kind of adapting in the most truest forms of ourselves. I'm doing stuff because I love to do them. I'm not going to push myself to be uncomfortable, but I'm really enjoying teaching, connecting with people. I'm excited about the Hump thing, and yeah.
Well, there's such positivity to everything you do, and so it's really fun to follow along with that. Cool. I can't wait. And anyone who listens to this podcast had better be listening to your podcast. So that I'm ordering you, get on your app and subscribe. Now, if you don't mind, I'd love to ask you, because you and I have both filmed courses for Discover Double Bass now, and like the whole process of creating that and going for a week and everything. How did you prepare for that? I'm just curious, because and then I have a fairly hilarious story to tell you about a course I filmed with another company. But how did you prepare for that?
Okay, so I do things very last minute, not because I'm not prepared. It's just things, they all come late, they all come at the very end. So I had all of the concepts. My course is just about beginning jazz bass, like fundamental technique, because I was always getting emails from, it seemed to be like middle-aged people who were like, I played bass in high school. I haven't touched it, in 30 years, and I really want to get back out there. What advice do you have? And that's what kind of sparked it, this like from beginner to bandstand thing. So just kind of like collecting my thoughts on the most essential fundamental techniques. Mm-hmm. But I was doing this, I think we filmed for 3 days, and I was making my notes each morning. I would put on Beethoven symphonies, and I'd write all my notes out. And that's kind of how that went. And Jeff was so sweet, and so he's an amazing director. Like, he should be directing films. He could direct so many things. Jeff Chalmers is awesome because he just lets you do your thing, but like makes a note when needed. But yeah, I'm very last minute, and he was so cool with that. I mean, we had all of our all the topics I wanted to talk about, but then at the end he was like, why don't you talk about like playing and singing bass? Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, that's easy. That's comfortable. But yeah, I'm all my notes, I still have them. They're just like I have a notebook that's like this big, and so that was it. And the film crew, they were awesome too, and really patient. So
Yeah. I think we had the exact same crew, Sean and Ash and everyone. And we were probably staying at the same place. I got up every morning, just like I took a walk along that canal. I got out my notes, wrote up my notes and that sort of thing. And it was so fun to do. That was not my first course I did for bass. It's coming out next month, the beginner one. And by the way, I love your course. I have recommended that a bunch of times because I also get a lot of contacts like, I'm 62 years old and I played bass back in high school and I want to get back into it. And so many people want to play jazz and it's a very, it's like a no-brainer for me to recommend that.
Thanks.
But, it's great. But in 2018, I was working for a company called Musicians Toolkit. I was their string liaison. So I was bringing all these artists on board and doing this. And I went and filmed a course. It was in Salt Lake City and came back. And this course has never seen the light of day because at the end of 2018, I get a call from the education director saying this is a true story. The FBI has just raided our offices.
Oh my gosh.
And we don't know what's happening, but we wanted to let the advisory board know. And I'm like, okay, that's an interesting call. So I tell my wife, and then the next day I get this email like company wide, like we're finished. And they had hired maybe 30 people. They'd hired all these people who were public school music directors to come work for them. They had a whole facility in Salt Lake City, and turns out they were part of a Ponzi scheme that was bilking investors to it was something like between $200 and $250 million. There was this silver trading thing, and they were one of 11 companies that this individual owned. I looked at I was like, what's going on here? So I did a little research, and I think he's in jail at this point, and all the content was seized by the FBI and hasn't seen the light of day. So I have one goofy little video left, and I shared that with Jeff, who thought it was the most hilarious thing he'd ever seen. I appear in a burst of fire, and so but the silver lining was it was kind of cool to get a do-over, try it once and then like realize what didn't go well and then to do it again.
Well, even another silver lining is maybe there's some FBI agent just killing it on the bass now.
Right. I know. I just can't wait for that content to surface at some point, maybe with like subtitles in, whatever language. So we'll see. Well, I can't wait. So first Wednesday of September, is that right? That it's
I guess
second
it's the second
Wednesday?
one, September 9th.
Oh, yeah.
9/9.
Okay, 9/9. Okay, 9/9. I'll get this out, and it's good to see you. It's again. I can't wait to see you in person, and hopefully at SF Jazz, which is a venue I love to check out.
Yes, we were scheduled for March 13th, and so it was rescheduled, and then they're rescheduling it again.
Where were you when everything got shut down? Were you on the road, or you made it back to LA?
Actually, I was in Monterey County working for Monterey Jazz Festival we do a traveling clinician thing. And, the whole thing was super fortuitous that, it was all happening at that point. There was a cruise ship right there, like releasing COVID patients into the Bay Area and Monterey. But also, I would have canceled everything anyways, because it turned out my sister-in-law, she was nearing the end of a cancer battle. So we just I drove, 7 hours back to Long Beach, hopped on a flight with my husband, and was in New York for a month while she was in hospice at home. And it was great. I have a little half-size bass over there, no E string. So I was just, really practicing G, D, and A with really small intervals, but it was fun.
Katie, you rock. Folks, follow the Hump. I am looking forward to it. I will have listened to the first episode or checked out the first episode. I'm not sure if it's just audio or video or both, but we will find out. And this is set to come out the day after that comes out. So that is super cool. And Katie's she's a rock star. What can I say? Well, she's a jazz star, but she's awesome. All the good things. Follow her on Instagram as well as the podcast. Check out her course with Discoverable Bass. That's all linked up to. And yeah, I can't wait to see her live. It was so much fun, as I mentioned briefly in this episode, to see her at SF Jazz like a year ago, I guess. And it's in this super cool space, the Joe Henderson Lab. It's been so long. I think I'm getting that name right. I think it's what the room she was in is, but it's got this glass exterior. So you're checking out the show and you're seeing people walk back and forth. And it's just very cool. Same room that I saw Larry Grenadier play the Gleaners in at the end of 2019. And wow, do I realize how much I miss live shows, and I am not taking live music for granted when it comes back. I think I kind of did. Not that I took, I don't think I was horrible in terms of that, but boy, never did I realize how important it is to go do things like see Katie play or Larry play or anybody play or play myself than right now as I sit staring out this same window that I've talked about for the last 6 months, watching my plants grow, my tomatoes come up, the new tomatoes come up. I need to find some other outlets. But we have one new wonderful outlet, which I don't even remember if I've mentioned on the podcast. I think I recorded the last batch before we got him. We have a wonderful new dog named William, who is a bundle of sweetness, does not bark, which is great for a 4-year-old rescue part Chihuahua mutt dog. Just such a little sweetie. If you watch any of the videos I put out on YouTube these days, I've been doing these camera on my head videos going through Dennis Whitaker's incredibly useful exercises. You will see William make a few appearances, although he gets really lazy when I play the bass and just kind of sits there. What is coming up? Well, Katie and I talked about it. The Discover Double Bass beginner course is coming in early October. I don't know what we'll do in terms of the podcast and that, except I'll probably be talking about it. Maybe I'll start talking about it in the intro. Who knows? It's been a while since I've tried to sell you all anything except my my ads, which I have run off and on for years for various companies. Off at the moment, but they may come back, but maybe not. We'll see. I don't know. It's certainly a shorter intro without him, but I've only ever taken advertising. I don't know why I'm talking about this at the end. I'm just trying to not edit and just say what's on my mind at the end of these podcasts. I've not taken advertising from anybody who I don't believe in and who I don't use their products. And at this point, I think everybody I've had on as an advertiser, I've also spoken with in person and generally gotten some audio from them for the podcast to kind of work that all together. So that's a very long way of saying there are obviously no ads now. Maybe I'll start just advertising my bass course since I have that. Maybe not. We'll see. I have no idea. And but I'm not ruling it out. I have all the ads from all the past companies on a folder on Dropbox, and it's very easy to add those back into the mix. Just always trying to find ways to keep this thing rolling. And one thing I've resisted, apparently I'm talking about monetization here today, but we'll go. One thing I have resisted is trying to monetize the audience through something like Patreon. I dipped my toe into that in 2016, and it just, I don't know, it just felt like I was trying to sell people on too many things. I thought I'll either take advertising or I'll start some sort of community support vehicle like Patreon, but I'm not going to do both. I just decided, though you could, I mean, if you look at public radio here in the States, they both do advertising and run that. It's not like there are any rules in terms of this sort of thing. I created this book, Winning the Audition, back in 2016. I thought I would do more projects like that to monetize the podcast. And I just I felt like I was just trying to make the podcast be something. And I feel, I don't know that I was hurting it, but I don't think I was, it was causing me stress. I'd think about the podcast and I'd be thinking about dollars. And I just decided to let the podcast be the podcast. And if there's a convenient convergence of things in my life where I might use it to sell something that I've created or been a part of, like this Discover Double Bass course, which I am mentioning now and will continue to mention, or Winning the Audition back in 2016, or I think I even, you know what, back in 2008, my very first book, Road Warrior Without an Expense Account, I used the podcast to talk about that too. So anything's on the table, but I just have enjoyed kind of having my career, which has resulted largely from this podcast, but it's kind of on a parallel track to this podcast, which is just a thing I'm doing in my life. And the byproduct is what you're listening to here, this conversation with Katie or any conversation. So that's how I'm thinking of things these days. I'm in the fortunate position where my work, though my life has been affected, but my work and I have my fingers in so many different pots or pies or whatever analogy you want to use, that I just sort of keep trucking. I'm like a musical cockroach. You can't get rid of me. That's probably a bad analogy, but I lost my train of thought, but I'm not going to edit. Okay, I got to escape this outro here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the mumblings and bumblings at the end here. Maybe I should start editing these outros again. Who knows? But I will close out here by thanking the team. Contrabass Conversations is put together by Michael Cooper, Steve Hinchy, Trevor Jones, Mitch Mooring, and Krista Copper. And Mitch makes beautiful basses, award-winning basses in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Kilgore, I almost said Katy, Texas. That's a different town. Kilgore, Texas. Just a great guy. Learn more about him. Follow along with everything he does at mitchmooring.com. I am your long-winded host, Jason Heath, wishing you a happy week, and we will see you again soon for more life in the low end of the spectrum.